Hi, I'm Ishani Nigam, and I'm passionate about creating content that educates and inspires the growth minded youth who are hungry to achieve their goals. And on this YouTube channel, I do exactly the same. I share video podcasts of my first step ever. You can follow this podcast on Spotify, Google, or Apple if you love listening to podcasts, or else you can subscribe this channel where you can see the entire podcast. So, what are you waiting for? Let's get started. On my first step ever, I am always very curious to go around the world, literally not, but virtually, and find out people who have done things differently only because they have done things their way. And so, on my first step ever, we have an amazing person, a personality who has defied the norms because he thought differently according to him. So please welcome on my first step ever, Max Hertan. Hi, Max. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, and thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much. It's an honor. I'm very curious to know about you as a person. But before that, I'd like to introduce you to my listeners. I'm sure people around the world who follow digital marketing very closely, they know that you are the founder of Megaphone Marketing. That's the leading digital marketing brand and company in Australia, and it's doing amazing things all over the world at this point in time. Along with that, you're also the founder of Sylvie, a skincare, health conscious bedding company, which is very, very unique, I would say. Because when you think of skincare, you just think of skincare. But I think what you're bringing in through skincare is a very different and a unique approach to it. And I'm very excited to see that what Sylvie does in future. But moving ahead, like we know that you are the Melbourne Young Entrepreneur winner. You're the Deloitte Fast 500 person, and you're also the number one, the Manifest Agency. So there's a lot of title under your belt. But over here, what we are interested to know that how are you as a person from the very beginning of your life, and what has made you the way you are today? I know a bit about you that you were a very naughty child, as you put up yourself. I would really like to know in your school days, what were you like? What was your mindset? What were you as a person at that point in time?
Yeah, I mean, you definitely hit the nail on the head that I was very naughty in schooling. Let's see, I've always had a lot of energy, so like I always find it hard to sit down. Like even right now, I've always got like something that I'm playing with. I've got a texter that I'm spinning in my fingers. I did that all through school. I got in a lot of trouble in school as well, but never for doing mean things. Just I talk a lot. I played pranks. I would always try to make my friends laugh. I don't think schooling was a great system for me. Like I like to learn at my own speed. I know a lot of people these days, they like to listen to podcasts at 1.5 speed or 2 speed and be doing something at the same time. And they actually listen and focus better. But in the classroom, you're listening at 0.5 speed because there's someone that's not even interested in what they're talking about, slowly talking about it a lot of the time. And I could feel that. And so it was a challenging environment for me. But for the most part, I just tried to have as much fun as I could. I knew that was the environment I was stuck in until I could get out of it. So just tried to have fun, make friends, be silly, and just skate by with doing as little work as I needed to.
Sounds interesting. Was there anyone ever in your childhood who ever complimented you for any of the qualities that you had back then in school?
Yeah, I think, I feel like teachers either loved me or didn't like me, like I feel like a lot of teachers, I think, that they knew I was really good-hearted, right? And so they knew they were like, oh, Max would be really good if he applied himself, or Max is showing a lot of potential, but he's always distracting the other kids. That was the feedback that I got. I think that they, every now and then I'd find something that I was interesting, like math was something that I liked, and so I used to do I'd finish my work and then I'd do the math from a few years above, and I'd get different math booklets and things like that. And I like that. Math has always been fun for me, weirdly. Or, I really like animals. So I'll do I do my own projects on animals once I'd finish all my work. And so I'd get my own little max work after I did all my work in primary school. And that kept me engaged. And similar in high school, if there was a subject that I liked and I respected the teacher, economics, mathematics, then I'd be a good student because I was enjoying it. I was actually interested. And that's another issue with the schooling system, right? Where you're forced to learn things that maybe doesn't resonate with you. I get it. I get it. That's how the system works. But yeah, so I think that was kind of the feedback that I got.
That's quite interesting because I think a lot of us, when we are in school days, we have certain personality that we bring forth, and at times we are put down because of that. If you do not fit in, how people are over there, or if you don't do exactly what people are telling you, your parents, your teachers, so we have that pressure, and I think we become more rebellious. Did you ever face that? That sort of a situation where people were purposely pinning you down because maybe you were a little different, or you did not like to follow the rules, and maybe you it's not that you do not like to follow the rules, you just did not like the system, as you mentioned. And if they did pin you down, what was your reaction? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, in primary school, I got in a lot of trouble. Like, I was an naughty child, but I had like just teachers yelling at me aggressively. And I still have like potentially traumatic experiences of just like, I remember just sitting down and teachers just yelling at me aggressively for like, things that I was trying to do in good nature. And, it was never mean spirited things, and I don't know, it was this weird thing, but I think my parents did a pretty good job of being supportive for me and allowing me to play into my curiosities and things like that. And yeah, so I think that I had supportive parents, and I did a lot of like different odd interests, whether it was like music or sport, and all kinds of different hobbies. And my parents were pretty supportive about that, and so I had ways to channel my energy outside of school, and that was enough to keep me motivated and things that were always exciting. And I think after university, I definitely had this mindset like I was going to just get a job. And so I was trying to find a job that was right for me. And I was going to the careers fair, and it was really hard for me to find something that resonated with me. And, I definitely got a big push from my dad saying like, look, you're just not going to find a job that you like. That's just how the real world works. You just have to find something, and then, you make it work. But that didn't really resonate with me. So, I just wanted to be happy and find something that suited for me. So I had to venture out a little bit on my own.
One thing that you mentioned in your story so far was very interesting, that you channelized your energy in the areas which helped you in a productive way. So I think that's a very good way to look at things. So I think for my listeners who are here, who are listening to us, if you find that you have a lot of energy, and people say that you're not focusing at the right place, probably that's okay, that is what they think. But if you feel that you have certain energy and certain interest in certain ways, being out of the box is all okay. And but putting that in the right direction for yourself can also help you go further in your career, and also to help you take the first step towards your goal. Now that could be as early on in your life you face, or maybe a later on if you try to understand what that goal is. But moving on in your journey ahead, Max, from there, from your your university life and your school life, I am quite interested to know, because the kind of person that you were, very out of the box, your thinking was out of the box, you did not find the career that you were looking for. But what were the activities, let's say the activities, organizations that you were associated with, or you invested your time in, that shaped you the kind of person that you are right now?
In university, I had like a radio show. So we did 4 semesters of a radio show, which was kind of like a Hamish and Andy style radio show where I would do like prank calls, and we would just like roam around the streets and talk to people on university about different topics. And that was fun. I was in a band, and I took the band quite seriously. We ended up like winning a Battle of the Bands competition. We had a manager. We would do maybe 1 or 2 gigs every week all around Melbourne. And so I was doing songwriting and performing, and I was wearing red jeans and necklaces, which is a different. I got into partying a lot. That was something where I just really liked to have like a yin and yang to my personality. And there's so many different things. I was playing a lot of poker online. I was a poker coach as well. I was a piano teacher. I was doing graphic design. I was designing t-shirts. I mean, there's probably a lot of other things as well. But I think, I started a business as well in university called Uni Party Listings, where I would list every single party that was going on across Australia that was run through a university organization on a website and social media. So if you were like me and like university parties, then you could just find where the good parties were happening. And then we ran our own party, and we got Red Bull and Future Music Festival to sponsor it. And we got all of the best Melbourne DJs. And it wasn't a success. We had about 200 people, and we needed about 240 people to break even. But still, it was fun. And it was kind of I didn't know, and what entrepreneurship was or that business necessarily. I just was like, hey, I like partying, and I think I could throw a cool party. And hey, I like, whatever it is that I was doing. I like podcasting, and I could do a cool podcast, and I like music, and I could write a cool song. So it was just more like scratching my itch and kind of just trying a lot of different things. But a lot of it involved me having to put myself out there, right? There's a sense of vulnerability when you start a business because it might fail, and all your friends go, hey, how's your business going? And you're like, oh, it failed. When you perform on stage and you've written a song about, an ex-girlfriend, and it's vulnerable, and then you're performing to a bunch of strangers. So there was a sense of just needing to I got used to putting myself out there, and I got used to maybe not caring as much about what other people thought and just doing things that felt fun and rewarding to me.
That's very appropriate. I think what I can understand is that you were very resourceful, and you had that confidence, or maybe you just loved being out there doing what you wanted. I think more than facing the public and having that, because everyone has that fear, most of us have that fear, what will other person think of me. I think it was more your drive to do all these different things that you were interested in, and just to have a really good time. I just get that picture from your life that you have mentioned right now. So from these instances in your life, is there any one learning that you would like to share with young adults who are listening to us right now, who are in the uni life, who are just there trying to be themselves, but it becomes very difficult for all of them to be themselves? What could be your one top advice or learning to them?
To that point as well, which is like, if there are things, it's such a good time in your life to do a lot of different things. I think that for my university degree, I did commerce economics. I didn't need to go to that much class. Like, actually, my last year, I only went to one lecture the whole year. And that was because I had an oral presentation. I did it, and then I just walked straight out. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or anything, but that's just what I did. I wasn't really enjoying my university classes. I didn't feel like I was learning much, but that meant I had a lot of free time. And so I do think that in the university days, you get a sense of progress because you are doing something to progress you to, a career. So you feel like you're actually being productive. But realistically, you've probably got a really nice period of time, and you do have other hours in the day to do other things. It depends on your course and how hard you want to work and what's important to you. But for me, I did have free time. And so it was a perfect opportunity to start a band. It's a lot harder to start a band now. I can't necessarily do 2 gigs and 2 practices every week, and a radio show and all these random things that I did. It's difficult, but it allowed me to explore a lot of different things. And something that came of all of that was with uni party listings. I learned a lot about social media, and actually that was the catalyst that eventually had me start Megaphone. It wasn't nothing necessarily needed to be successful, but it was just about exploration and creative expression and yeah, and leveraging the time that we have before we probably end up with a career.
Yeah, that's lovely. I would really like to know about business venture as well. But before that, I really want to ask one thing. I'm not sure if you had a plan of action in mind while you were in university. It looked like you just lived your heart out while you were in university, explored and did everything you felt like, which is a really good quality if someone has. It's very difficult. But if in case you did not have a plan of action, did you ever have that fear in your mind, what will I do after university? Also, because you knew that you don't have the kind of job that you're looking for. Did you ever have that fear? And if yes, how did you deal with that?
I don't know. I just assumed that I was going to end up in a job in marketing or economics. I guess at that time, I was pretty serious about the band. I was pretty serious about these random businesses that I was doing. And I thought, and I still believe actually, if I would have pursued those for 7 years with focus like I did Megaphone, I think I would have eventually figured out how to make good songs and make the band thing work, or figured out how to make the university thing work. But they weren't necessarily the biggest opportunity that aligned to what I was trying to optimize for. But I guess when I was thinking about a career, I think the main thing that I was thinking is I just didn't want to have a job that felt trapped. I remember I ended up applying for a few jobs, and one of them was craft, and I got an interview. I did the the intelligence testing, and then I got an interview, and I'd read all about Kraft. I knew all about their company history and their corporate values, and I was ready for the interview, and they just never called. We had a call scheduled in, they never called. And I was actually, my heart was racing before the call. It wasn't because I was nervous for the interview. It was
Oh,
because
yeah.
I just knew that this job wasn't right for me. And I was thinking about, I was signing away, if I got this job, I was going to sign away years of my life to a big corporation and to something that just wasn't right for my personality. And intuitively, I got all of this anxiety, probably like the first time in maybe my life where I'd felt like that was like this really big sign that my body was like, hey, you don't want to do this. Like, and you got to figure something else out right now. And so they never called. I never emailed then. I was like, I don't want to work for Kraft. I don't want a corporate job. It's not right for me. I need to figure out another way to make money and get by, because I can barely sit still in a class. Like, I can't sit still 9 to 5, 5 days a week. It wasn't going to work for me.
Yeah, I think you always knew where you want to be. It's just that the path was not very clear because it is not out there actually. So it's great that you share that story of yours where you had that moment of fear, or as you mentioned, your heart racing, because a lot of us do think that way. When we are subjected to situations that we don't want to be in, but we sort of compromise because there's no other way. But it's very good that you had that intuition so strong in you that you knew this is not gonna help you in your life ahead, and you took measures for that, I think. So from there, we're moving on to your business venture very quickly. Like, I wanted to ask why, but now I know why, as we have been talking about why did you start Megaphone. But what do you think? What has been your top learnings, or now that you look back, what do you think? What are the top three things that made Megaphone what it is right now, from your perspective, your journey, the kind of person that you were, and how you made this business?
I think a few things. I think because I knew, I'd had one job before Megaphone, and I was working for Apple in retail for 4 months, and everyone was so happy there. And I was so miserable. And I just remembered thinking, if everyone's really happy here, and people were saying, oh, this is the best job I've ever had. I was like, if this is the best job that you've ever had, then I just can't have a job, because this just doesn't make me happy. So I was
Interesting.
really driven to succeed. And when you're really driven to succeed, you're willing to do things that other people aren't. I'm willing to study harder. I'm willing to cold call, walk into businesses, go to networking meetings that I didn't want to go to, and put on a suit, even though I hated wearing suits. Like, I was willing to do the things that were very unpleasant for me, just because I was like, the alternative is even more unpleasant. And that's a whole lifetime of that. This is just potentially for a few years. So I think that was one thing, which was a level of I was willing to just push myself on the education front and discomfort. I think a big thing that's really correlated to all success is just being resourceful in understanding what is your problem and how you're trying to solve it. If you're trying to get a job, trying to get your dream job, like, there is the way that everyone else is doing it, but then there's always this other way of doing it, right? You could network, you could start a podcast, and you could start your own business and learn real skills. You could work for your family business or the business down the road for free in exchange for learning on real clients, right? And then you're getting this real world experience. So it's similar with business. It's like, okay, if you don't know how to sell, it doesn't mean that you don't know how to sell. It just means you need to figure out what is the fastest way that you can learn how to sell. On the selling front, I ended up meeting a guy who gave me a course recommendation. I did the course, and that was super helpful. And I never knew anything about sales until then. And so there's always these challenges. And so figuring out who knows the answer, or what's a different way of getting to that solution without just banging your head against the wall. But sometimes it is just banging your head against the wall. And then I guess, there's so many other little things that I could point to. Maybe the last thing is the reason why it's gotten to the size that it's gotten, when I think other businesses that were started at the same time maybe didn't, and there are some that also did really well too. So everyone's got their own journeys. But I think part of it was also, I didn't need it to be about me. It wasn't like an ego-driven exercise. It wasn't like I needed my face on, and I needed to be the CEO, and I needed to, I was willing to let other people step up to roles, and sometimes they would succeed and sometimes they wouldn't. But I knew that I also sometimes succeeded and sometimes failed. And, as a leader, sometimes I say the right things and sometimes I don't. And sometimes I close the deal and sometimes I don't. And so I didn't have an unreasonable expectation on the people that came to work for Megaphone. And I think that we created a really good vision and a culture together. The people that have excelled have moved to leadership positions, and they've been really given as much support and opportunity that I could give them. And I think that allowing people to thrive in your culture allows people that have the energy to push it, to allow them to use that energy to really take something to the next level. And I think that that was something that was really helpful in the reason why we've gotten as far as we have.
Exciting. I really enjoyed listening to all the reasons that you mentioned, according to how Megaphone became uh, the thing in Australian digital marketing business over here. And very interestingly, as you mentioned, it's just not about you, it's about the people who are working, because it's a team that takes a business where it is now, and that really reflects in your hiring process as well. It has been lovely to know the stages that you have. It's very thought after. Moving from here, I just wanted to say that I really liked your YouTube video in which you say 30 things that you learned in your life 30 things that you learned in your life, and it was amazing. And you had some really nice understanding about on personal development, on relationships, and also there was a last thing that you mentioned: don't be afraid to ask. And I'm so happy that I could ask you if you would be happy to be on this podcast, and you said yes. So that is an amazing thing for me. And just from there, I would like to know if you would like to say top three things again, but this is for the people who are listening to us, who are trying to go towards their goal in life but are not able to take the first step for a lot of reasons that we all know. What would be your top three suggestions for them?
I think the key things is sometimes someone comes to me with a business idea and they say, what do you think? And, the truth is, I don't think it's a good idea. But it's not, it's better that they start and fail and iterate and learn than not to do the idea a lot of the time. If it's going to cost them $1 million, then I'll tell them, hey, don't do it. But if it's going to cost them only their time, but they're going to learn and get better, then that is actually the nature of every entrepreneur. Like I've had, Megaphone successful, Sylvie successful. I've had a few successful, but I probably have 25 businesses that no one's ever heard of, and like really random things. Like I've done, I almost did like a teeth whitening. I actually started an education company for like a year that I invested time into that didn't take off. I actually had a bed sheets company 8 years ago that didn't work. I had like a homewares company. I've done so many different things. And in university, I was doing different things. I had two tech companies. I've had so many things. And, could I have made those things successful? Maybe, but I learned something from it. I learned about user experience and how to develop, or product market fit, or who is a good business partner and who isn't a good business partner. Every time you learn something, and then you compound all of those experiences into something like Sylvie, which just blows up. We really knew me and my business partner, we had become seasoned entrepreneurs, and we'll still make mistakes all the time. But we came in with so much knowledge that our chance of success and the level of success that we were going to achieve was so much of a higher percentage because of all of our compounded failures and learnings. And so when you're taking that mind frame, you probably still think it's going to be successful, but it doesn't have to be successful. And if you can mitigate the downside, the amount of money and time that you need to spend to get it out there and to see if it works, then I feel like every successful person has just got a lot of these failed businesses, and that's just compounding in knowledge and learnings. And so with that frame point, you can't lose. You only lose by not getting started.
That's quite relevant, I would say, and very like bang on. And I would also like to add one thing over here for our listeners, that starting anything, it's not just about the business or anything you want to do in life. It's about your personal relationships or about your health. Everything that you want to start today will only start with a small step that you take, and it is very, very, very common that you might fail. So that is a fear that should not be fear, that should be accepted, that might happen, and that's common. And as you've heard from Max journey so far, I think you have been someone who has followed your heart, and that's why things have gone in a way that you wanted, because you were making your own choices. Of course you failed, of course you learned, as you just showed us. So that is one great takeaway that I have from our discussion today, that just follow your heart. Definitely understand what are the risks associated, where you're going, have your own research understanding done. And one more thing that I would like to mention, that you said that it's okay if you do not know something, and but the way out is that reach out to the people who know it and who have done that better, and better than anyone else. So amazing. Thank you so much, Max, for being on My First Step Ever. And before you leave, I would like to ask you if there's any quote or saying that you would like to leave our listeners with.
I mean, my big three things is integrity, balance, and growth. So long as I actually have written that on my whiteboard, I've got it tattooed on my ankle. So that's how I just think about life. Like if I'm living it with my integrity, living in alignment to my values, if I'm balancing all of my values and making sure I'm not neglecting them, and if I'm moving forward, then I just feel really happy. And so it's just like a simple thing that I reflect on to make sure that I'm in my zone.
That's very, very important to have your own values and your goals. One thing that I realized after graduating, that I had no goal. I had a goal while I was in school, that I had to be in this particular class, I have to get good grades and be in university, then get good grades. But then what after that? So that is what I learned, that you need to have a goal in life, so that you have that sense of achievement every time you hit that point in your life. And I think that the goals that you have, or the values that you have, are a big umbrella picture for you to go towards, irrespective of, I mean, business is one aspect of it, but there are different aspects to your life as well. And it was really interesting to know a little bit about you, to peep in your life a bit and get to know you. And for a lot more information about Max, I'm going to leave a link on My First Step Ever _IN Insta account. And do follow his YouTube account, because I have learned a lot about him and his journey, how he has understood things in along his life, and also a little more bit about marketing if you're interested over there. Ooh, that was an amazing episode. If you've learned something out of it, something that inspired you, put down in comments below what you really liked and what would you like to listen to more. And before leaving this channel, if you feel like you would like to listen to more of these, like, share and subscribe. You know the drill, and also press the bell icon so that you can hear the notifications. See you until next time.